Dentistry in General Radio Network presents the Independent Dental Practice Podcast with Dr. Sonny Spirit. In this episode,
Today's episode of the Independent Dental Practice, we have Dr. Richard Madow. You might remember him from the Richards Report. He have founded the Matto Center for Dental Practice Success. Lectures all over the world. A funny guy. Great take on things. We're going to talk about 8 phrases sick and tired of hearing. And behind each of the phrases is pretty good story, pretty good information. You don't want to miss it. Hope you enjoy the show, everybody. Thank you.
Straight Talk in Dentistry, debunking the 8 most overused phrases. Dr. Sonny Spirit interviews Dr. Richard Madow.
Welcome to the Independent Dental Practice Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spirit. Today, I'm talking with an old friend and a legend in dentistry. He's still rocking it and rolling it, doing a lot these days in the consulting and coaching world. And again, he would tell you it depends on which side you want to talk about, but it's consulting and coaching, right? In 1989, Dr. Richard Madow co-founded the Matto Center for Dental Practice. And you guys may have remembered him from the Richards Report, which was one of the favorite newsletters out there because it touched on things that nobody wanted to talk about and everybody knew about a little. Anyway, it was great. Known for his hilarious and spontaneous style, Rich has presented to standing room only crowds in practically every major city in the United States and Canada, teaching dentists and their team members how to enjoy their careers, supercharge their practices, define and create their own personal success, increase profitability, and have more fun than ever before. On a personal level, he's a lifelong and award-winning musician and songwriter. And if you ever hear him speak, he brings the guitar, he sings, it's hysterical. And it's very legit. It's good stuff. He's performed in many venues across North America. His music is on Spotify, Apple Music, and all the regular streaming sites. He's a huge Beatles fan, so I'm sure that will come up. Among his other achievements, Rich's book, ready for this now, Is Your Frog Boiling? Yes, was an Amazon.com bestseller. He's been in 57 countries. Let's welcome Dr. Richard Madow. Rich, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Sonny. It's so good to be here and to see you again. You're putting the pressure on to be spontaneous and hilarious, so we'll have to see how that works out. But thanks for that kind intro, and it's just great to be here. I just spoke at the Yankee in Boston, and some of your team members were there,
Yes,
which was so great to see. And here we are.
That's right. That was right. They were excited. They started talking. I go, hold on, let me send them a message. They were like, excuse me? You're sending him a message? I go, yeah, I had him on the podcast. He's great. Boom, boom, boom. You got a reply right back. They were like, oh, you ain't kidding? I was like, no.
It's not exactly like you're sending a message to Paul McCartney here. Come
That's
on,
close. In the dental
we're
world,
all just dentists.
I call it close. All right, so we're going to talk about, I asked Rich a couple things, and if I'm lucky enough and hold them on, we're going to get 2 shows. But the show that we're talking about right now is give me 8 dental phrases you are sick and tired of hearing. And as always, with Rich's experience and his intimate understanding of the dental practice, there will be plenty of tips and plenty of pearls. So I'm going to hand it over to you, my friend.
Only 8 phrases that I'm tired of hearing?
You got a million.
It's so funny when we talked about the topic for this, we were a short time ago, we were looking for a new consultant at the Matto Center. We were hiring a new coach consultant, as you said, who cares which one you call it. And I got this resume, or our team leader got this resume. I'm just going to read you the first sentence. It was like, as a dental consultant, I specialize in leveraging synergistic frameworks to optimize operational workflows and drive sustainable growth across all verticals within dental practices. It's, what are you talking about? Yeah. And it went on and on. It got even worse. All this like millennial corporate speak driving me crazy. And then, wow, there are some things in dentistry that I hear from dentists all the time, from great dentists, great people. But I'm just tired of hearing these phrases because they're so inaccurate and they bring things down. Should we just get rocking and talk about the phrases?
But I got to ask you one question because you really struck something. Because that description that you just read, after the second word, I was like, okay, I stopped paying attention because it's just way past my comprehensive level.
Exactly.
Now, have you seen AI make a major change in these areas?
Yes, it's really interesting. Now, this just could be anecdotal. And I got to tell you, I love AI. I use ChatGPT many times a day, whether it's to help me with a dental issue, edit or clean up a piece that I've written, or whatever. Say, hey, I'm going to be in Vancouver with my wife. Give me a 4-day itinerary. And it's amazing. It'll come back and say, yes, you and Candace love culture, music, hiking, dining. It's unbelievable. But I've definitely seen that when some people email me or submit something in my company, the writing has improved in a way, but it's also lost some of its soul. And I think when you use
That's a
AI a lot, which it's
perfect call. Lost
yeah,
its.
it sounds like you use AI a lot as well. And you can spot it from a mile away. I'll be like reading an obituary in the Baltimore Sun papers and say, AI. You can just, it has it written all over it. So it's changed for the better and the worse, I would say.
Yeah, I had to write an article in the dental products report. And I wrote it and I changed it, I modified it, and I submitted it. And then it came back and said, okay, we approved this. And I looked at it, I said, that's not me. That's not my, I would never write this. So I said, no, get my name off it, or this has to be human. This has to sound like I'm speaking to someone. And so we were able to manage to make it human, put some soul back into it, if you will. But yeah, it's a trigger. Anyway, so
you're convinced that it wasn't edited by a human, that they ran it through Claude or ChatGPT. Yeah, you can tell. When you're a frequent user, you can tell.
No question in my mind. I was like, I didn't say this.
But the thing now, see, now you got me on it. You got me on a tangent here. Learning how to do prompts is really key if you're going to use AI. And if you're writing, whether it's an email to a patient or an insurance company or an article for a journal like you did, after it loses its soul, you can say, make it sound more human. And I've actually trained my AI because I've written so many articles. I have fed those articles into AI so it learns my style. So it still takes the soul out a bit, but you can also train it to improve.
That's good to know. So let's roll, man. What's our phrases we don't want to hear?
Here's one. It's so funny, Sonny, because I know dentists from all over the country. And so many times they'll say, that sounds good, but in my practice, blah, blah, blah. Or in my town, blah, blah, blah. So one that I love hearing is, you don't understand, Rich. My patients have a low dental IQ. As if there's a such thing as a dental IQ test that you would administer to your patients. People say that their patients have a low dental IQ. And I will say to that, good. That's great. Do you want your patients to have a high dental IQ? That would be so flippin' annoying. It would drive you crazy. I'm glad my patients have a low dental IQ. And guess what? I have a low electrician's IQ. And that's why when this light socket in my condo went out last week, I had to call an electrician. And you know what? It would have been annoying as anything if that person had come in and tried to turn me into an electrician. That's not what I wanted. I wanted him to fix it. Great. Charge me a reasonable fee, say it's all good to go, and get the heck out of my way. I don't need him to say the ohms and the gigawatts are converting with the aluminum chlorohydrate. No, I don't want any of that. So I'd say having a low dental IQ is good, even though there's no such thing. If you had to say there's a such thing, I would say it's good. And I think where dentists run into trouble many times is when we think our patients have a low understanding of what's going on and a low understanding of what their treatment will need. And I'm going to educate them until they become a dentist or a dental hygienist, and then they'll accept treatment. Now, that's dangerous.
What's funny? You just said that because coming back, speaking of going to the Yankee, came back and I listened to Mark Hyman was one lecture, and Jeffrey Hoos, Dr. Hoos, who's a good friend of mine, and that's the first time I met him. They both spoke on similar things yet different. And then sure enough, Monday, don't I have a couple scenarios that roll in? I said, I'm going to try this communication style. And going back to the original podcast we talked about, which was the meeting of someone, first time, patient memorable, first time experience, knee to knee, face to face, sitting down, looking straight at the patient and then asking some certain questions. And it was a completely different day. When my wife and I had dinner, she was like, how'd it go? I said, today was a great day. It seems like I batted 1,000. So I was able to put that stuff in place. And a scenario like the patients have a bad dental IQ. Honestly, that's really, to me, an excuse for I'm not teaching or communicating very well.
Exactly. And I love when you say teaching and communicating, because that's what it's all about. You need to teach and communicate. But if you try to do it on the level of a DDS or a PhD or whatever, you're not going to get through. Teaching and communicating is such a personal skill to have. And I can tell in just our casual chats that you've got it. I see some dentists saying, as you can see, there's a radiolucency on the distal root of like, what?
Yeah. Look at your occlusion. Excuse me?
Right. I didn't know I had one. Oh man. All right. Should we go? Let's do number 2.
Let's roll. You're rolling. Okay. I love it.
Now, just like I am, Sonny, I would imagine that you are on a lot of dental email lists, whether it's for journals, clinical education, management education, whatever. I think I get like 20 to 25 dental emails per day. That's a slow day. And when it's on the practice management side, so many of the subjects subject lines are, so here comes a phrase I can't stand. Here's how to drop your PPOs.
Especially in the arena that I talk to a lot of, which is the independent dental practice, fee for service. Yeah. And it's the common question, right? But yeah, here's how to do it. Drop your PPO.
Here's how to do it. So look, most people, especially people who follow you and listen to your stuff, probably are mostly fee for service. They might have a few PPOs that are annoying and they think about dropping them, and that's great. And look, I've met many successful dentists who are very heavy into PPOs, and that's the style they like, and they know how to work it, and good for them if that suits them. But I think why I don't like that phrase and where we run into danger is because, first of all, they're telling every dentist that dropping their PPOs is the keys to their success. And for some dentists, it's just not a good fit. But also, what they don't teach is that it's not as simple as saying, I've got 5 crappy PPOs, boom, I'm dropping them. If you're in that situation and you want to drop them, excellent. That's really cool. But it's a whole process. It takes planning. It takes a year, in my opinion, because I think you need to talk to every patient face to face. You can't send out an email or send out a letter. No one's going to come back. And really importantly, it takes the team to understand why you want to drop your PPOs. But if their understanding is, Dr. Sonny's dropping the PPOs because they don't pay enough money, that's going to come through in their communications with patients. If their understanding is, Dr. Sonny's dropping this PPO because they're too restrictive when allowing us to provide the best treatment for our patient, that's a whole different story.
Right. You want to try to control the narrative, right? So it's so funny you mentioned this particular one. I sat next to a fella in an implant course this past weekend, and I got talking to him. I said, tell me about where you're at, what you're doing, just conversation. And he had a busy practice. He's in Rhode Island. Had a busy practice, had it going. He's going to bring in an associate. Another practice came for sale. He bought it. He was going to bring in the associate. And then the associate, something didn't work out. So then his plan was to move all those patients over, which was 4 miles, which was doable, and then drop his two insurances he's still in network with. And one was the devil, which may or may not be an airline. Okay. So he brought it over, and then before he got it out, word got out, and then that company then sent massive smear campaign against him. So boy, like you said, takes about a year. Speak to every patient face to face, have a conversation, tell them what you're doing, tell them more importantly why you're doing it, right? And it's in their best interest if they understand what you're telling them. If it's not, I hate to say it, but dumb it down, get it down to a 3rd grade level and explain it. And then you've done everything you can, right? I felt bad for the guy. He's doing fine, but it just felt bad for the way the whole thing went down. But it just really proves your point. And I've spoke to so many people who've done the I'm dropping insurance way, and some have done it correctly, and some just, it was the shotgun approach, see what sticks.
Right. And as bad as the shotgun approach is, don't do it. It gets worse when you compose a letter that says, we no longer accept your insurance because they don't pay us enough, when they're thinking the rich doctor drives a Lexus that he parks in front of the office with a personalized license plate that says Flawsome. They don't pay this guy enough? Come on. Okay. I think we're on number 3. But
right.
I think
we're keeping rolling.
Something I hear all the time when I visit an office, just on the busy day, we're chatting with each other, we're communicating, and I'll hear a team member or doctor say something like, we have a crown prep in room number 3.
Correct.
And I'm thinking, you know what? Unless you walk into treatment room number 3 and there's a big tooth with an MOD amalgam with recurrent decay sitting on the chair, and that's all that's on the chair,
right?
You do not have a crown prep in room 3. You have a human being in room 3 who is probably nervous AF, who probably doesn't want to be there. They're worried about pain. They're worried about cost. They also might have a family and a sister, and they might be a pharmacist at the local CVS, and they might love college basketball and the Rolling Stones. That's what you have in room 3. You don't have a crown prep in room 3.
Right.
And depersonalizing our patients like that. And again, I know it's just a busy day and you're just saying it. Stop making such a big deal out of it, Rich. It is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because when you even quickly or subconsciously think of a patient as the crown prep in room 3, the way you treat them and the level of service you provide and your conversation and your interaction just changes.
Happened today.
No way.
Happened today. We got those fillings in room 7. I said, you mean Mrs. Smith? Oh, yeah. Okay. And then it happened a second time. And then they looked at me and I was like, yeah, I'm not kidding. That's not really how we want to speak. Yeah, that's Connie. We're going to see Connie. Is Connie seated? Yeah. Okay. We're going to put the crown in room 3. Like, excuse me?
I'll tell you where I was reading about, I can't remember what book it was, but I was reading about, and this is just a horrible scenario, but I was reading about how When you're in a war, which I'm so thankful I've never been in a war. My father-in-law was a Marine in World War II, and he's told me he's gone now, but he told some crazy stories. But that when you're in a position where you actually have to kill another person, if you think of them, that's the enemy, that's the enemy. I think that's what you have to do when you have that mindset, as horrible as it is. But what if you stop to think, wow, that person they're a person who fixes cars at the local Toyota dealer, and they have a family, and it's, God, just imagine the horror that involves. In dentistry, it's the opposite. When we think of a person as a real person, everything opens up as to treating them the way that anybody should be treated.
Yep.
I don't even know how I got there. That was probably a pretty depressing thing to even talk about. But hey, here we are. I'm supposed to be fun and enthusiastic, right?
But it's the reality, right?
Yeah,
those things happen. And as much as you want to say, listen, this is how we do things, this is our culture, it happens. And there's nothing wrong with recentering it and saying, you mean Mrs. Smith? Oh, okay.
Yep. I like the way you did that too. You weren't nasty, you weren't sarcastic, you were just reminding your team this is a human being in there. Very cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Just to bring this back, obviously we were both at Yankee. I haven't walked an exhibit floor in a long time, but due to my plane schedule, I was able to spend about 3 hours on the exhibit floor at Yankee. And it was just so much fun. I love going there and chit-chatting with all the vendors, the new ones, the old ones. You see all kinds of cool stuff there. But as much as I love doing it, and as much as we as dentists and team members get turned on by seeing what's new and what's out there, another phrase that I really don't like is when a vendor or exhibitor, whatever, or it doesn't even have to be at a show, somebody trying to sell you something, and this is a paraphrase, but they're using the old, if you buy it, they will come.
Yeah.
Because I have nothing against upgrading to the finest equipment, the newest tech. It's cool, it's fun, it provides better treatment, it makes our days more interesting. But if a practice is in a slump and they're not getting new patients, their revenues are down, attitudes are poor, blah, 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 blah. Buying a new piece of equipment is not going to solve that. It's going to make it worse because now you'll have the same problems, but you'll have debt. And it really frustrates me when I hear a salesperson for some big dental company, billion-dollar public company, telling little Joe or Joanna dentist that every problem you have in your practice will be solved if you buy our Schmagegadator. And I just have heard it so many times, and I've talked to so many dentists who are in deep debt trouble because of that. So if you buy it, they will come. Don't like it.
Here's a real world experience that relates 100% to that. But one of our practices from a dentist in Pennsylvania, just across the border from us, good friend, and he had no digital x-rays, right? So having done this a couple of times, I'm like, that's fine. We're going to make this go. Then I had a friend of mine call me, said, yeah, they don't have digital x-ray. I'm going to have to put that in. I said, no, first of all, you don't have to. You don't have to. Okay. Is it nice to have it? Sure. For all the reasons you mentioned. However, what's the priority? What you just bought to practice. How about you go in and you meet the patients and you dazzle them? How about that becomes your only focus for 6 months, right? That's what you did. You just invested. This is going to be your life. Do that. You can add the technology and things as you go along, but make sure that the barn is built. Make sure that part is done first. It's so funny. And you're going to get these sales pitches and you're going to get them in email. You're going to get them on social media. You're going to get bombarded with you got to do this. You got to do this.
Yep. I don't know if you're a same-day crown guy or not.
No, I'm not.
Okay. As I say sometimes, I'll only get that crown if I can have it done in one day. Instead, no patient ever. Same-day crowns are cool, whether they're
cool.
Clinically more effective or have better margins. I'm not going to get into that. That's not my thing. But I can tell you that you're not going to lose patients because you don't do same-day crowns. You're going to lose patients if you can have same-day crowns and give them the crappiest painful injection ever and gag them during the prep and make them uncomfortable. Who cares if you're doing a same-day crown if you do that kind of stuff? Yeah.
So true.
Okay. Fifth phrase. Pretty much every dentist, not all, but almost every dentist that contacts me to see how we can help their practice, when we're chatting and talking about what they need in their practice, they'll say, we need more new patients. We need more new patients. We need more new patients so badly. And look, new patients are great. Who doesn't love new patients? But many times we learn two things about the practice, and this is almost consistent across the board. First of all, when we analyze their data, we find they're losing just as many patients as they're gaining. So they could be getting 20 new patients, 30 new patients, or maybe it's a different kind of practice getting 5 new patients per month, which can work in some practices. But no matter what, when we do the graph, and we see patients coming in versus patients who haven't been in 18 months, which I don't even believe in this benchmark, but it's become the industry standard for a lost patient. We find that just as many patients are slipping through the cracks, leaving through the back door, whatever you want to call it, as are coming in the front door. What's easier, to keep a patient happy and keep them in the practice, or to always be fishing for new patients? What's easier, to reactivate a patient who hasn't been in for 18 months or to find a new patient? It's so much easier to work with the patients you already have. And again, new patients are great, but let's see if we've got a hole in our practice where new patients who already know you, like you, are falling out. And the results are unbelievable when you look at it that way. I tell people, like, let's stop worrying about new patients for a couple months and talk about the patients who we already have. Second issue with these people is, and I know this because in my podcast, and I've been doing this for years, even way before podcasts, I do mystery shopper calls. I've probably done over 1,000 mystery shopper calls. I can call saying, hey, I just moved to the area. I saw your practice. I know I need 8 crowns. Is it okay if I pay cash? I get $10,000 in my pocket, and then I'll ask for the appointment. So practices have new patients calling, and they never materialize. So I say front desk team training and talking about the patients you already have before we even worry about marketing or whatever for new patients.
So I love this. And do you have, by any chance, what the cost is to retain a new patient versus the cost to bring in a new patient?
It's so funny that you said that, because when I was just lecturing, I said it's 83% more cost efficient to retain a patient than to get a new one. And I said, do you know where I got that data? I made it up. I said, but hey, every speaker here makes up data, but it sounds good. I just did it as a joke. And then a dentist, this is like our recurring theme today, a dentist who was in my class went on AI and asked ChatGPT to analyze the difference in cost. And I don't have that right in front of me, but he sent me this amazing answer. And I was blown away that, I'm doing this from memory, but I'm pretty sure it's true. It's about 10 times more costly. So my 83% was way low.
Yeah.
10 times more costly to get a new patient than to retain one.
I heard something. That's why I asked you, because I remember reading it. And if you didn't have a number, I had heard, I was going to say it was about 4 or 5 times that I remember something like that, right? So if you're spending $100 to bring in a new patient, that's telling you it's about $20 to keep a patient.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It's somewhere in that ballpark, whether it's 83%, 5 times or 10 times. And here's a quick tip for people. Sometimes people will they'll hear from me, from you, or somewhere else. They'll say, okay, we need to get a reactivation campaign going. Let's say, Madge, start calling every patient that hasn't been in 18 months. Start A to Z, start with Aaron Aardvark, and don't finish till you get the Zelda's Y back. And there's 2 reasons that doesn't work. First of all, if you say, Madge, do this when you have a spare moment, it's never getting done, because Madge doesn't want to do that. She's got other things that are more fun to do, so it'll never get done. So you need dedicated time. Madge, we're not open on Fridays. Can you come in from 9 to 12 and do our reactivation campaign? Of course, we'll pay you for it. And secondly, triage. Someone who hasn't been in 18 months in 1 day is much more likely to come in than somebody who hasn't been 5 years. And somebody who came in 18 months in 1 day ago was a complete effing pain in the ass. Why would you even call them? If you do it alphabetically, you're wasting time. Triage it. Who's most likely to come in, and start with them?
Right. I'm with you on that.
Right on. Do we have 3 more? I think we have 3 more.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think
We have time? Let's do it.
We're good, man. We're cooking.
Okay, cool. Another phrase that I can't stand, and no matter what the topic is, I always try to get this one in there, because I hate the phrase pet peeve. I have a pet peeve against pet peeve, but this is my pet peeve. The phrase I don't like is, have a seat, we'll be right with you. And then they sit and they sit. I'm like on a campaign against running late in your practice. Obviously, I do like a whole hour segment on it. We don't have time to get into the mechanics of it today, but I can tell you, if you run late, you are absolutely losing patients. If somebody doesn't leave your practice, they're still upset with you, and they're not going to refer their friends and their family and their colleagues. And don't tell me it's not possible, because the many years that I owned and operated my practice, after I saw the light, we did not run late. I'm telling you, we did not run late. It was our office philosophy. It was our only rule. We did not run late. I always say that the magic words that a new patient or any patient can hear when they walk in is, don't even sit down, we're ready for you. Ooh la, that's like a beautiful chorus. Running late drives me nuts. I'm so prompt for everything.
It's a separator. It separates you from others.
It absolutely does. And it's almost like people expect to be annoyed and sit. And when you don't do it, they're amazed.
You remember Linda Miles, right? What did she say?
Of course.
You don't have a waiting room, you have a reception area. Because if they sit
Yep.
in the waiting room, they're expected to
Wait.
wait. If it's a
Right.
reception, you're greeted and then you're seated.
It's greeted then seated. I like the rhyme.
Right
It should
off
be
top of my head. How
repeated.
about that?
Awesome. But I just can't emphasize this enough. It tells the patient that you don't care about them and their schedule, that you think your time is more important. And that
Right.
is probably not true. You probably do care about them and their time, but you got to show them. It's not
Right.
enough just to say we care. You got to show them.
I agree.
Okay. Here's another phrase. Look, I love millennials. My kids are millennials. But for some reason, I hear this from millennials a lot. And that is, I want to scale my practice. I want to scale my practice. Now, you're a multiple practice owner.
Yes.
And some people have pulled it off, you included, have pulled it off really successfully. And that's great. But it drives me crazy when I see a practitioner, specifically a young practitioner, I know a lot of your listeners are young. Yeah, we'll call them kids, young kids. And all they're thinking about is, I want to scale my practice. How can I open up 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 practices? How can I conquer the world? And you know what? If that's your personality, you have the skill set to do it, awesome. But before you even think about that, you better have one practice that is rocking like crazy, that is extremely efficient. It's treating their patients. Revenues are awesome. Dentist is making a lot of money. Team is happy. Patients are happy. You're bursting at the seams. And you say, this is the model I want to replicate. Because if your first practice is mediocre, opening up a second practice, some people think, well, I'm only making X amount of dollars from the first practice. My goal is to make 3X this amount. So I'm going to open up 3 practices. It doesn't work that way, because you've just tripled your overhead and more than quadrupled your headaches, and you can only be in one place at one time. Let's get one great practice first.
Right. I think the other part of that is, if you do, right, and this is a Howard Ferran thing, right? If you do and you got it in great shape, it's easier to say, okay, let's take this model and put it here. So you have a like almost a, he uses McDonald's often, but it's a franchise. So your systems, your phone, your all the things that you have implemented, you can now shift and implement somewhere else based on what you've got, and it's cooking, it's working for you.
Yep. I remember I was talking to a somewhat young dentist a month or 2 ago, and he contacted me because he said, Rich, I want you to teach me how to scale my practice. And he said, whoa, Nelly, let's look at the data of your first practice before we talk about scaling your practice. And we looked at your revenues were decent. A lot of his KPIs were good. His perio percentage was about 6 or 7%, which means 6 to 7% of his patients were either undergoing periodontal therapy or in some kind of perio maintenance program. And we all know that well over half the adults in the US population have some kind of perio disease. And I said, you want to scale your practice? You're not even scaling your patients. And I think he hung up on me, but it's so true. If you've got a practice where nobody's undergoing periodontal therapy, why do you want to replicate that practice? Let's figure out a way so your patients are being treated correctly and they're not getting bloody prophies. They're happy. Their gums are in good shape. You're getting paid the way you deserve. Why do you want to replicate anything other than that? And then I see these dentists who say, I want to get involved in like real estate investing. I'm going to invest in my cousin's brew pub because that sounds like fun. And I'm going to sell overpriced hand lotions in my office. And if I can get 5 people to get 5 people to get 5 people to get 5 people to buy these lotions, come on here. Let's talk about doing things that our patients want and need, not some esoteric crazy course. Our patients want periotherapy, good restorative dentistry, implants. I love aligners, of course. That's like the no-brainer of 2025, doing aligners in your practice. Let's get really good at these things first and forget about this esoteric crap.
Agreed. Very much.
All right. What do you think? I think we've got one more. Many people are surprised when I say I'm sick of hearing this phrase because they think it's so important. But this phrase is work-life balance. I am not a fan of the phrase work-life balance. I'm totally on to what we mean when we say it. And I think that's great that we need to have this. But I think the reason I don't like work-life balance is because when you say you need a better work-life balance, to me, this implies life good, work bad. Oh, so we need to balance them. It's like that negative happiness equation that I've talked about many times, where dentists or team members don't really like being at the office that much, but they know I love to do things on the weekend. I love to ski and I love to buy my photography equipment, whatever it is, take vacations with my family, go out to nice dinners, host a party, watch Netflix, whatever it is. Most of these things we like to do, like it or not, cost money. So I'm going to make a deal with myself. I'm going to put up with all this BS at my practice all week long so I can be happy when I'm not at my practice. That's not a work-life balance. That's a negative happiness equation. I think our goal is that we enjoy our non-work time, our life, so to speak, so much, and we enjoy being in our practice so much that there is no balance to worry about. That whatever we do, we're happy. That we love being with our regular family, or some people like to spend time alone. If that's what makes them happy, great. But no matter what makes you happy when you're not in the office, you got to spend time in the office, and you got to be with those people that you hired. So why not enjoy that just as much as you enjoy the time when you're not in the office?
That's such a small thing, but a huge thing. And a lot of the chatter and a lot of stuff that I'll read, especially from some of the younger docs or newer docs, we'll say, I can't say younger, but newer docs, they will talk about, how do I limit my time here? How do I, because I really don't enjoy it. This is a necessary evil for me, kind of thing. Oh my goodness. There's not enough time to have a conversation. If it's really the case, maybe do something else. Oh, but the money, yeah, but look at yourself. Listen to yourself. You're miserable. If you're working, you're spending over half your time in the office. You might as well have fun. You might as well enjoy yourself. I'm sorry. I'm going to spend this much time here. We're going to have some fun. Just how it is.
I totally agree. And it can be tough to do because we're under pressure to produce and pay our team and do all those things. But I think and sometimes it just means slowing down. Slow down, allow yourself time to take a breath, treat your team members unbelievably well. And I'll tell you, sadly, the bar is really low treating your team members. I find that when I come in and greet every single team member by name in the morning and ask them how their night was, and did they, whatever, watch the Ravens game or see that TV show, or hey, I heard you're trying that new pizza place with your boyfriend. How was it? Just some little informal chit chat. And then at the end of the day, thank them for being there, for doing a great job, and say, you did such a great job today. Thanks so much for coming in. Compliment your team members in front of a patient. Say please and thank you. Just these simple things take so much tension out of the dentistry's tense. Our procedures are difficult. Sometimes they go wrong. Our patients don't want to be there, but that's our lives. So let's learn how to make all this stuff better, more fun. I just find that the way the doc and the team relates is so important in the happiness of the dentist, and not having to worry about work-life balance, because we like all aspects of our lives.
So I'm going to ask you this then. You're working with the doctor, and we know you do a lot of coaching and stuff. Coaching, I was going to say consulting, but I was like, I don't want to.
I don't care.
So you do a lot of coaching with clients. And I want to have a whole nother show on part of these things. But how do you help that person who's basically telling you, I don't enjoy this?
Yeah, it's really tough. Our coaches are amazing, but I will say it's easier to talk to a dentist about their systems and their protocols than their personal struggles. And even though I'm not the hands-on coach, we have an amazing coaching staff that does it. Every single client that we work with, I tell them they've got a direct line to me. They can schedule a Zoom with me, just like we're Zooming right now, anytime. So I've had these difficult conversations, and it's a tough question to answer because it's different for every dentist. Every dentist has something different that's driving them crazy, making them miserable, whatever. But I think it's really important to, first of all, just like with any problem, get to the bottom of it. What is it that you don't like? And I think in the old days, it was more so, I don't like the actual putting a burr on a tooth, whatever. But I think these days, it's more about the interpersonal relationships between the doc and the team, and the doc and the patients. So if I don't know anything, I tend to start there. Let's talk about your relationship with your team. Do you come in at the same time as the first patient every morning? If the first patient's at 8, are you getting there at 8:05 and starting the day in chaos, and your team doesn't know what's going on, and you're putting out fires all day? Or do you get there at 7:30, greet everyone warmly, have a nice huddle where everybody's relaxed, and then you got a few minutes to catch your breath? All those little things that maybe they don't think are important to their personal well-being really are important. Let's talk about the way that you relate to your team. Let's talk about the way you communicate with your team. Let's talk about the way you treat a difficult patient. I think I'm willing to get down to those specifics to help somebody enjoy dentistry more. Sometimes also it's the debt of the practice, and all they're worried about is money. And whether I can help them with this, or I put them in touch with an accountant or financial planner, let's get a plan here so that you're not always worried, and let's help you reach your financial goals in a way that's not going to stress you out. So it's different for every person, but it starts with figuring out what's making that person unhappy.
Great stuff. That's a great spot to end this too. That was absolutely spot on. I couldn't said it any better.
But you're such an easy guy to chat with. I really enjoy your casual style. You're insightful yet casual. And I think, again, what we were just talking about, so many dentists think that they need to be super technical and come off as the most intellectual person in the world to impress their patients. And it's really not true. You can be, just like you, Sonny, you can be insightful and intelligent, but your style can be very casual. And I think our patients really appreciate that.
Right. And I think that's how you build your culture, and your patient culture becomes, right. There's an affinity there, right? You're getting along for some reason, and they're referring people for the same reason. So at the end of the day, when you step back, wow, this is the community that we've created. So
absolutely.
Again, thanks very much. If people want to reach you, want to share that with everybody?
Sure. Our website's Madow.com. It's spelled with one D, Madow.com. If you want to email me personally, that's my favorite way to get in touch with someone. I answer every email, and my personal email address is just Rich, R-I-C-H, at Madow, Madow.com, rich@Madow.com. If you're a podcast type person, which you probably are because you're listening or watching this one right now, our podcast is called The Dental Practice Fixers, and it's on all the major platforms.
There you have it. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. Rich, thank you.
Great to see you again.
Same here.
This has been a production of Dentistry in General Radio Network. Visit our website, dentistryingeneral.com, to join engaging clinical and business conversations, explore our dental podcasts, and stay updated on our upcoming live event.